and welcome people to this evening's Oak Grove Community Council meeting. I'm Valerie Chapman and I am the vice chair of the meeting. Our chair, Joseph Edge, is not with us tonight. He is dealing with some family issues, and so keep him in our thoughts, but he is not with us this evening. I want to invite people to mute themselves if they are not already muted, and be prepared to unmute themselves if they have something to say. I see we still have people coming in. That's a good sign. I'd also like to remind people this evening, if you have been coming to our council meetings only via Zoom, because you were not around to come to meetings when we were actually doing that in person, that it's very important that you get your address to Jan Lindstrom, who's handling our attendance. If you have not done that, if we had an in-person meeting, when you came, you would be signing in and we would have that information. So that's a step for people who live in the area, want to be voting members. So make sure that you get your address to Jan Lindstrom if you have never signed in before with us. And you can just do that through the chat. If that's too complicated, you can send it to us after the meeting. We want to make sure that we keep everybody's attendance up to date. So welcome to everybody who are here tonight. And let's do introductions of the board. And I'm Valerie Chapman. I'm the vice chair. Jane, you want to?
My name is Jane Civiletti, the treasurer. Mark?
Hi, Mark Elliott. I live off of Concord Road here at Oak Grove.
Rich?
My name's Rich Nippon, and I am over just south of the Fred Meyers on Oak Grove Boulevard, a couple of blocks.
Jan?
Hi, Jan Lindstrom. I'm a board member at large as well, and I live on Laurelwood near River Road.
Thank you. And we are short one member of, so we just have 6 members on the board at this time. I want to welcome everybody else who has come to our meeting tonight, and go ahead and give our officer reports. If we'd like to. Okay, Jane?
Jane? The treasurer's report stands as it has for the entire 2021 year. We have had no money in and no money out. Our treasury still stands at $1,712.38.
Okay. Are there other, there's not other board reports that need to be given tonight? Jan, do you have a?
No, but I was just going to say, are you going to ask the membership's permission to pay for the web hosting, Jane, or did you want me to explain it?
Well, I think we had decided to postpone that until a board meeting when we can all discuss it, if that's okay with you.
Got it. That's it.
Okay. So I am putting on my screen right now, if I can do this right. See if I can get. These are the draft minutes for our last meeting, and we had a little glitch in communication, so they are on our website now. I want people, if you can see these minutes, to take notice of the attendance. If you were at the last meeting, and make sure that you are in the right category. This doing attendance on Zoom is a little more complicated. So we have both board members who are there. We have voting members. I think Carol Powers, we already know, should be in the voting members category. We have the not yet voting members, Anita Blackmar, Pam Horan, Daniel Lohman, Ann Muir, Kathy Najek, Otis Quattlebaum, Linda Seals. We had visitors, and then we have some people whose status is unknown. We're not sure whether they live in the area or voting. That's Mark Knutson, Christina Roberti, Dorothy Rowland, and someone named as Sydney's iPhone. So you can chat directly to Jan Lindstrom, who's doing attendance. We want to make sure that people are in the right category. There's questions about that, let us know. I hope people had a chance to see that. They are on the web at this point, and we will make sure that in the future, the goal is to get the minutes from our meetings sent out along with the agendas, and that was supposed to happen, but we didn't connect. So we'll do better next time. If there are no other questions about the attendance, everybody okay with that? Then I think that we can go ahead and, well, first let me stop. Is there anybody that's new at our meeting tonight, has not been here before, that you can either? So the gentleman in red shirt, in the red shirt with his raised hand, Craig, do you want to go ahead and introduce?
Sure. Thanks, Valerie. I attended actually one program over at Roseville some time ago, but I'm Craig Van Valkenburg. I'm at Willamette View. So nice to be in attendance tonight.
Welcome. We're glad to have you. Any other
Thank you.
new people here tonight? I've not been to a, right. Let's go ahead and I'm going to turn the meeting over to Vahid Brown, who is our guest speaker tonight, who will be speaking to us about housing, shelter, houselessness, and updating in our area. And Vahid, do you need the screen?
Yeah, I will share a PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, let's see if we can get you on here.
And while I'm waiting for that, hi everyone, I'm Vahid Brown, Supportive Housing Services Program Manager with the Housing Authority of Clackamas County. I've spoken to your community council several times before about homelessness and was asked to provide another update or some information about the state of homelessness in the county and some of the things that we're up to, which I am happy to do. This is a rather somber topic, and I'm going to go to slideshow. I think every time I've given a public presentation about homelessness in our region, it's been an emergency, and it remains so. So a lot of this is somber and not happy information, but I'm going to sort of do my best to give us a sense of what's the state of. Oh, it looks like I'm a co-host, so I'm seeing that someone is trying to be admitted into the meeting. I will admit them, if that's okay. All right. So I'm going to talk broadly about the numbers of around homelessness, some of the statistics, touch on some of the myths and areas of issues and controversy that have to do with homelessness in Clackamas County, and kind of touch on those before I speak to some of the programs that are underway now to address the crisis and house the people and provide services to people experiencing homelessness. This is a rather busy slide, and you probably can't see it all if your little bar of Hollywood squares is covering it, but that bar is movable, so you can move it around the screen. The leftmost side of the screen, where were we in 2019, is the numbers of households on wait lists in our coordinated entry system of various types. People who were chronically homeless, those folks who had been experiencing homelessness for a year or more and had a disabling condition, families with children experiencing homelessness, and youth experiencing homelessness. You can see those numbers are high. In 2019, there were 452 households that were considered chronically homeless, 243 families with children, and 55 households that were youth only or youth-led households. The middle column represents existing programs funded by the county through federal, state, and local resources that address the needs of people experiencing homelessness and who was served and whose homelessness was ended. 191 households considered chronically homeless were housed in that year from summer 2019 to summer 2020, 199 households with children and 25 youth households. And the far right of the slide shows the wait lists by those categories as of summer of 2020. So there's some movement. This is good. I think the most significant movement that you'll notice is the wait list in the summer of 2019 and the wait list in the summer of 2020 of chronically homeless people was quite smaller, more than half the size, or smaller than half the size. So there has been significant movement in the past year during the COVID crisis in reducing the overall numbers of people experiencing chronic homelessness waiting to be served and helped by the county and by our nonprofit partners. And that's due to a lot of factors, but I think that one of the most significant ones is the additional funding that came from the state and the federal government to address the needs of people experiencing homelessness related to the COVID-19 crisis. Significant efforts and dollars were put into making sure that people experiencing homelessness who were at risk of exposure and at risk of serious illness if exposed to COVID-19 were taken out of harm's way. And of course, we prioritized and directed resources to those most likely to be at serious risk of hospitalization or death from COVID-19, which not surprisingly were people who had experienced the lengthiest time of homelessness and had disabling conditions. So our efforts were targeted at the most vulnerable people experiencing homelessness in the county. And we have far fewer chronically homeless people awaiting for help now. So that's the one of the pieces of good news in my presentation. Another way to look at the numbers, I'm not going to discuss the 2021. Every other year, there is a point in time count of people experiencing homelessness in Clackamas County. That's a point a day, a night in January on which many of our community partners count people who are experiencing homelessness. Because of COVID-19, we did not do an in-person count in 2021, in January of 2021. We were approved by HUD, by Housing and Urban Development, to do an alternative way of counting the people of experiencing homelessness in Clackamas County using our coordinated entry system. And those numbers are to be submitted to HUD May 15th. So that 2021 data is not yet available. So the 2019 coordinated housing access list, this is the 2019, summer of 2019 coordinated housing wait list that shows the number of people experiencing homelessness who had contacted us or who we were aware of who needed to be served in some way or other. 36% of that almost 2,000 people were chronically homeless. In 2018, the Clackamas County Children's Commission provided us with information and statistics about children in their programs, their free preschool programs throughout the community. 65% of preschool children enrolled in Head Start in Clackamas County are experiencing homelessness. Clackamas Community College this year shared statistics about homelessness amongst their student population. 47% of students enrolled in Clackamas Community College are experiencing homelessness or were in the previous year. In 2019, our wait list for people who would be qualified or eligible for supportive housing, that is people who are chronically homeless and are seriously disabled or have a debilitating condition that requires that they receive ongoing supportive care to remain stably housed. That wait list was 605 people. With the current resources that we have at that time in 2019, and just a reminder to folks to please mute during the presentation. with the resources that we had at the time in 2019, in order to place everyone who is on that wait list in 2019 into those permanent supportive housing programs, it would take us 22 years. That's because people in permanent supportive housing often do not leave their permanent supportive housing because they are disabled, older folks who are never going to go onto the market and rent an apartment and afford a private market rent. They're going to need ongoing subsidy and ongoing services. So those beds, those units are often held by the household that is placed in them until that household passes away. So there's slow turnover there. That's the sort of stark bad news part of the supportive housing pipeline, that there are far more people in 2019 waiting for those resources than we have available. The good news is coming a little bit later, because we will have significant new supportive housing resources coming to the county starting this summer. Looking at trends, the most significant trend in the point in time counts, going back to 2015, every 2 years, again, the point in time counts are taken, it has to do with chronic homelessness. And chronic homelessness, the most appropriate intervention for folks experiencing chronic homelessness is supportive housing. A 43% increase from 2015 to 2017, a 54% increase from 2017 to 2019. I've already spoken about some reductions that we were able to achieve during COVID, but these are stark trends. These are the most stark trends in our overall population of people experiencing homelessness in Clackamas County. Why do people become homeless? Every other year, we ask this in the point in time count. We ask this in a number of ways through different surveys. As you can see from this list from the 2017 point in time count, these are ranked by the most frequently cited answers for why someone became homeless or lost their housing. Homelessness in Clackamas County, in Oregon, and really in the United States is primarily an economic condition. It's an inability to afford the rent. And it is more acute, and homelessness is more acute in communities where that gap between the income, the wage, and the rent is greatest. I'm going to speak a little bit more about that later, but the West Coast has some of the broadest gaps in the country when it comes to wages versus the cost of housing. This isn't a surprise to any of you that houses are expensive in Oregon and in Clackamas County. Rent is very expensive in Clackamas County. So the inability to afford housing is the main reason that people are homeless. That is the significant, stable, consistent takeaway from all of our data sources year after year, and not just in Clackamas County, but really throughout the United States. There are other contributing factors to people becoming homeless, and those are cited in this as well. You can see that the top three have to do with the economics of remaining housed. Kicked out by a family or friend is the fourth most cited cause. That is among one of the leading causes of homelessness of youth, particularly of LGBTQ youth. They are LGBTQ youth who experience homelessness. The leading cause of their homelessness is being kicked out of their homes by their family. Domestic violence is number 6. Domestic violence is a leading cause of homelessness among women. In a survey that I conducted in Clackamas County in 2016, more than half of women experiencing homelessness were experiencing homelessness because they fled domestic violence in the situation in which they were last housed. Similar numbers, but not quite as stark, because I think we had fewer respondents to this question. In 2019, see a similar trend. The top two are related to that, that issue of the economics of housing in our community. An inability to afford rent is the most commonly cited cause. Unemployment is related again to inability to afford rent, and then conflict with the family, housemates, mental or emotional health issues, eviction, drug and alcohol use, divorce, domestic violence. So all of the same issues, similar ranking. I want to say something about the magnet myth. This is the idea that people come to a community to experience homelessness there because of X. This is a very common myth throughout the United States. There's lots of studies about this. You can Google the magnet myth and homelessness. It's been studied all over the place. It seems that it's quite common for people to think wherever they live, whether it's Seattle or Portland or Clackamas County or the Bay Area of California, that the homeless people who live there aren't from there. That is a common misconception. It is a conception that many people have, but it's not borne out by the data. It isn't borne out by the data really in any community, but it's also not borne out by the data in Clackamas County. Most people who are experiencing homelessness in Clackamas County are from Clackamas County, or they were last housed in Clackamas County. The Springwater Corridor Survey in 2016, 90% of those surveyed, when asked what do they consider home, they said Oregon. 83% had lived in Oregon for more than 10 years. Of those who answered where they were last housed, the majority, 66%, said that they were last housed in the neighborhood in which I spoke to them and conducted the survey. So people experience homelessness by losing their housing, and they tend to stay in the community that they lost their housing in. In the 2019 point in time count, we also found that the overwhelming majority of people who are experiencing homelessness in Clackamas County had lived here for a long time, most more than 2 years, more than 90% for more than a year. Of the total number of people who were counted in the 2019 point in time count, 11% said that they were experiencing homelessness when they came to Clackamas County and ended up here. So there is a portion of people who are experiencing homelessness here who did come here from somewhere else, but it's a small minority, 11%. Similar questions are asked in the point in time count in Multnomah County, and similar statistics are found there. It's not unique to Clackamas County. Another thing I wanted to address is the relationship of homelessness to behavioral health issues, to addiction and substance use. Substance use is a driver of homelessness. So are untreated mental health issues. It is not the leading driver of homelessness, as I mentioned already. The most significant driver of homelessness in our community is an inability to afford rent. It's a gap between wages and the costs of rent, the costs of housing. But there is certainly a number of people experiencing homelessness in our community who lost their housing because of an addiction or because of an untreated mental illness. But it is not the leading cause of homelessness. These statistics here are just to sort of present a little bit of a contrast to kind of think about that. The rate of overdose deaths, the state with the leading statistic, the most per capita people who abuse heroin and who die of overdose deaths is West Virginia. West Virginia has 42.4 people per 100,000 die of overdose of opiates per CDC 2018 data. Oregon has one of the lowest. We're in the bottom 25, the bottom 10. I think we're number 9 there, with eight people per 100,000. Oregon has one of the highest rates of homelessness, and West Virginia has one of the lowest. You can see that the ratio is roughly inverted, where we have 8 versus 42.4 with respect to the rate of overdose. It's 38 to 8 with respect to the rates of homelessness. If the rates of addiction were to blame for people experiencing homelessness, these statistics wouldn't make any sense. Why they make sense, why homelessness is so much more acute and prevalent in Oregon as opposed to West Virginia, is because of the cost of housing. The median home price in Oregon is over $400,000. In Clackamas County, the average home on the market in the county is the highest in the state of Oregon. You know that the average 1-bedroom rent in Clackamas County is $1,450 and higher. And these are the housing costs in West Virginia are listed on the bottom. I just Googled these numbers today. Just something to think about with respect to the relationship between these two issues, which are often very closely linked in people's minds, but need to be understood as complicated and not a direct causal relationship. White supremacy, racism is also a material cause of homelessness. This is national data. Nationally, the percentage of the population in the United States, which is Black or African American, is 13%. And yet Black African American folks make up 40% of the overall homelessness population in the United States. It's similar with the other categories on this, the other non-white categories on this, this slide. 0.9% of the national population is Native American, Alaskan Hawaiian. 3.3% of the homeless population identifies by that race. 0.4% of the national population are Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander. 1.5. So 4 times, they're 4 times overrepresented among the homeless population. It's true in Clackamas County as well. We did a racial disparities analysis as a part of a plan for the supportive housing services measure. And this slide shows the percentage difference between the presence of a population by race in the overall population and the presence of that population amongst the homeless in Clackamas County. The light green are chronically homeless and the dark green are non-chronically homeless, to put it simply. And as you can see, the starkest disparity with respect to people experiencing homelessness by race in Clackamas County is with Native Hawaiians, Pacific Islanders, Native Americans, and Black or African American folks in our community. So we see these disparities that are national within Clackamas County. This is a legacy of racist housing policies, educational policies, access to intergenerational wealth, and so forth. These are not by accident, and they are reflected in Clackamas County just as we see them nationally. To get a sense of why so many people who aren't making a lot of money in Clackamas County are struggling with their housing and why we have so many folks who are unable to afford housing in Clackamas County, this is the distribution of households by income in the county. With the median is this golden line in the middle. Half of the households make more than that. Half of the households make less than that. AMI is area median income. The green bar shows the affordable housing rent, if you're a renter, at various points along this continuum of area median income. If you make 80% of area median income, which means between $35,000 and $50,000 a year, which is a librarian's salary or a school teacher or someone who works in the office in the city hall of the city that you live in and so forth. The rent that you can afford, that means the rent that takes up 30% of your income, is $1,320. If you make 60% of area median income, $993 is your affordable rent. That would be a third of your income every month. If you make 30% of area median income, $500 would be your affordable rent on a monthly basis. There aren't any apartments in Clackamas County for $500. There aren't any apartments in Clackamas County for $900 that aren't income restricted and for which you don't have to apply often through tax restricted programs. They aren't on the market. The average for a 1-bedroom apartment in the county is $1,200. For a 2-bedroom apartment is $1,400. I've already mentioned the cost of housing. I think this isn't a surprise. We see the Oregonian every few weeks that the average price of houses on the market goes up another 10 or 15% by month. This breaks down household income by kind of profession type and annual salary according to that AMI number. So when you look at this graph and you think about what is 80% of AMI, 60 and 30% of AMI, you can think about it in terms of a single adult on Social Security income is making less than 30% of AMI. That's $17,000 a year. A retail worker with a minimum wage full-time income, an office admin assistant in the 30 to 60 AMI, a nurse, a postal worker in the 60 to 80% of AMI, a firefighter, elementary school teacher. These are working people in our communities of all types who cannot afford housing. And Oak Grove and its surrounding communities are rent burdened, right? As you know, far too many people in your community spend half or more of their income on their housing costs. That's the leading cause. I mean, that's the context picture for homelessness in the county. I want to talk about some of the initiatives that we're engaged on now or engaged in now to attempt to address this issue. And again, these slides kind of take up the whole screen. I apologize if you're not able to see all of it because of the Hollywood Squares bar. The affordable housing bond, the Metro Affordable Housing Bond, passed in 2018, is one of the many efforts that Clackamas County and the Housing Authority are engaged in to meet the needs for more affordable housing for lower income folks in our community. Our goal in the county is to create housing for over 2,500 residents with 812 units as the target goal when we developed our local implementation strategy for the affordable housing bond. We are well on our way with the Housing Authority to exceeding that goal. There are 4 projects currently underway that involve bond funding. I think the total units in those 4 projects is almost 500. And then there is the redevelopment at the Hillside in Milwaukee that will produce several hundred more new units. So we are on track to meet these goals, and these will bring many new units of affordable housing for a variety of different income levels to the county. We also have, coming in this summer, the Supportive Housing Services Measure, also known as the Here Together measure. And Cole Merkel is with us, I believe, this evening, one of the fantabulous people of Here Together. This was a ballot measure, a Metro ballot measure that was passed last May that will raise an anticipated $250 million a year throughout the Metro region for supportive services. So the Metro Affordable Housing Bond, this one, will build units, will build apartments and homes for lower income households in the community. And this measure will provide resources to provide rent assistance, behavioral health and addiction recovery supports to people in housing to help them succeed in their housing, that supportive housing services that I mentioned earlier as the most appropriate intervention for people who are experiencing long-term homelessness. 21.3% of the overall revenue will come to Clackamas County, with the rest of it being distributed to Multnomah and Washington counties. Once this measure is fully implemented, we're anticipating more than $50 million a year in revenue to Clackamas County that will fund supportive services. So this is going to really help the county to drive down that number of people and households who are living without shelter and without housing for many years to become housed and to have the appropriate services for them to succeed long-term in their housing. It's a game changer. This is more than 7 times the amount that Clackamas County currently has in its budgets for homeless services. The total from the federal, state, and local from general fund investments in homeless services for Clackamas County as of last year was about $8 million. So with more than $50 million a year, we'll be able to do a lot more for a lot more households. The first year's plan for the Supportive Housing Services Measure was presented to and approved by the Housing Authority Board, which is the Board of County Commissioners and a resident commissioner, earlier this month. And these are the year 1 goals associated with that plan. I'm not going to kind of go into this at length, but the plan and all of these goals are on the Housing Authority website, and I'm happy to answer questions about the Supportive Housing Services Measure. But it's exciting. Hundreds of new long-term rent assistance commitments to families. When you think about the one of the first slides, I'm going to give you all vertigo in a second and go back to the beginning, if that's okay. There's in summer of 2020, 178 households were on the wait list for chronic homelessness, who are chronically homeless. And the overall wait list for people who needed supportive housing as an intervention was in several hundred people more than that. These resources are going to allow us to eliminate wait lists of people experiencing chronic homelessness. The goal is that no one in Clackamas County experiences homelessness for a long period of time, and that anyone who loses their housing, their homelessness is brief, They're able to connect with services quickly, and we're able to transition them safely off the streets without having to endure years of unsheltered homelessness in the county. It's a game changer. Wanted to highlight some of the other successes of the county in work that we have been doing over previous years to address this larger problem. One program that you may not have heard of is the Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion, or LEAD program, which we started in Clackamas County in 2018. It follows or is modeled after a pilot that was run a couple of years prior to that in Seattle. It's a partnership with the District Attorney's Office, the Clackamas County Sheriff's Department, and Health, Housing, and Human Services. It diverts people from jail and arrest who are experiencing homelessness to connection with caseworkers, social workers from Central City Concern, who are able to work with people over the long term, meet them where they are, get them to court, take them to appointments, identify what barriers they have to experience, to getting housed, and work with them without an end date or without kind of a you must do this or else. The diversion part. It looks like a deputy, a sheriff's deputy, encountering someone who is experiencing homelessness and maybe in possession of drugs, and saying, "I'm going to arrest you. I can arrest you and take you to the jail and book you, and your charge will be sent to the district attorney's office, and you'll be charged in court." Or you can meet a Central City Concern lead caseworker and just connect with them. If you follow up with them, make an appointment, make one appointment, and do your assessment, do an assessment with them. You don't have to engage in treatment. You don't have to engage in any services. You just have to make this one appointment and have the assessment. That arrest will go away. It will never be charged, and you won't go to jail today. It's up to you. It's your choice. And so people who make this choice to connect with our program, there's now about 175 people in this program. Almost 60 of them have been housed in the program. All measures from numbers of arrests, numbers of days in jail, numbers of new charges brought against folks are down for everyone enrolled in LEAD. It's been a very successful program. The Clackamas County Veterans Village is pictured on the slide on the left. Those are the sleeping pods at the Veterans Village. It was a pilot started in 2018 or it was in 2018. With Do Good Multnomah as the service provider. It's an innovative project. It's the only one of its kind in the country, in that the county went through a very rigorous zoning and design ordinance amendment to create transitional shelter communities as a zoning designation that was used for the first time for this project. It started with 15 pods, like you see here. There's now 26. It has served almost 70 people over the 2 years that it's been in existence, and is a really remarkable program, moving veterans experiencing homelessness into shelter, into transitional shelter, surrounded by supportive services, and from there quickly into permanent housing. We've also, under COVID, been able to place an unprecedented number of people out of harm's way of COVID, but also off of the street, into motels, emergency use motel rooms, paid for through the COVID dollars and FEMA reimbursement money. Right now, there's about 150 units of motel rooms in the county, which are being utilized in this way. And through rapid rehousing dollars and other rent assistance vouchers from the Housing Authority, rather than having folks shelter in a motel for a short period of time or for a period of months to remain safe from transmission of COVID until they can get a vaccine, whatever, and then returning them to homelessness, which is what we would typically do in the winter, right? Every winter we have warming shelters. People come in from the cold. In the morning they leave and they're still homeless. With this emergency shelter motel program, more people are leaving motels into permanent housing than are leaving them into homelessness. So that's been a very successful program. A lot of the rent assistance money that has been distributed to the county for folks who are unable to pay rent due to COVID and the loss of income has been distributed by culturally specific providers in the county, and that's really improved our relationship with culturally specific providers. that we hadn't previously worked with to reach communities of color that we hadn't had the ability to reach in those ways. And challenges, with the two main programs that I mentioned, the affordable housing bond and the supportive housing services measure, these were metro measures that will only serve folks in the metro region, the urban growth boundary region of Clackamas County. Those dollars can't be spent in the rural parts of the county, in Molalla, Canby, Estacada, Damascus, and so forth. And there are people experiencing homelessness in the rural parts of the county for sure. And people with low incomes who struggle to afford their housing. So there remain large and unmet needs in the rural areas of the county. The county is undergoing a analysis of existing resources that can be reprogrammed or redirected to target the rural areas now that we have these dollars coming from the metro measures. And we also continue to have a struggle with a lack of shelter capacity. There is emergency shelter for families with children. In Clackamas County, there's one family shelter, and there is available shelter for people fleeing domestic violence through Clackamas Women's Services. And we have the Veterans Village that serves veterans who are experiencing homelessness, but we do not have any year-round emergency shelter in the county for people to immediately and safely get off of the street and connect with services. With the exception of these motel programs, but they are not dedicated year-round shelters. So that continues to be a challenge for us as we struggle to confront this emergency. I think I've taken my 30 minutes, Valerie, and I wanted to leave some time for questions. So maybe a couple minutes for questions.
Yes, let's do that. If you want to stop screen sharing, and then if people have a question for Vahid, I want to thank you for that presentation to Vahid. If you have a question, you can use the raise hand function, or you can use the raise hand function and you can go from there. So I don't see any questions. Yeah, I'll just throw out a question. Vahid, if there was something that could be that a community could do to be supportive, what could we do to be supportive in these programs?
I mean, my presentation was about kind of county data and county programs, but so much of what really makes the difference in people's lives who are in acute poverty and experiencing homelessness is community-based interventions and outreach, community-based programs, community-based organizations. There are Oak Grove churches that have been enormously helpful and life-saving in standing up to meet needs during the wildfires and the smoke shelter. In the winter, when we need emergency responses with freak weather. So there has been an incredible partnership with some of the churches in Oak Grove, but also in other parts of the county. I mean, I think, one of the most difficult dynamics in working in kind of public institutions to meet the needs of people experiencing homelessness is the persistence of myths and misunderstandings about our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness. So community members and neighbors, you can help lift the tenor of this conversation to a place of reality and a place that's fact-based and is more, I think, humane, and understanding that any one of us, I have a diagnosed mental illness, right? I have suffered with that and lost income at various times in my life. I have family that have experienced homelessness. I'm sure many of you do as well. It's not a moral failing to have a medical bill that you can't pay. And it's not a moral failing to have a car breakdown that leads to you losing a job, that leads to you losing an apartment, that leads to you becoming homeless. These are misfortunes and some of the stressful realities of living, working poor in the United States. So, I wish I had given more thought to your question, Valerie, but I think that, as community members, we can all think about our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness as our neighbors, and think about how we would address a neighbor in an emergency or in a crisis who is housed, and maybe try to carry that attitude towards our neighbors who aren't.
Thank you. Eleanor Hunter has her hand, and then after that, Mark Elliott. So Eleanor, you want to
Sure.
go ahead.
Vahid, I want to thank you so much for this really cogent, clear, informative presentation. Thank you so much. And humane as well. Thanks for the heart that's in it. And thank you very much for calling out the systemic racism that is part of what got us into this situation. The question that I'm interested in, you mentioned at one point when you were speaking about the Veterans Village, about the special zoning ordinance or whatever that was created to help make that happen, and really appreciating the context of that, and that it's, there isn't another one in the country. I'm involved with the Clackamas Land and Housing Cohort, and there's land around churches that the churches are really wanting to help leverage to help create housing. And I'm just wondering, one of the things that the sense is that it's like a zoning sort of difficulty barrier. And so I'm just wondering about it. I never thought about the zoning that was there for the Veterans Village. And is there some way to help recognize that zoning could be changed there? Could it be changed for these other uses as well? I think you get where I'm going here. So
Yeah, I think that has been a barrier to the siting of shelters or the use of church property or other lands for meeting these kinds of needs, or creating innovative approaches with shelter or with safe parking programs. I think the Board of County Commissioners for the past several years has annually renewed an emergency declaration around homelessness that has allowed for community members like a church to request to pursue a project that may not be outright allowable under zoning or code under the auspices of that emergency. And so there is a process where that has existed where a church could reach out to Health, Housing, and Human Services and the Department of Transportation and Development, that the two departments, then we have a form that we would then fill out and submit to the county administrator, Gary Schmidt. And that the last time that emergency declaration was renewed by the Board of County Commissioners, it was agreed that any submission of this type would then be shared with and discussed by the board as a whole. So it does go through a kind of a process up to the Board of County Commissioners, but that is a currently existing mechanism for citing a program under the auspices of a homelessness emergency that may not be outright allowed under the current zone and code limitations. I mean, of course, there's also variances and conditional use permits, but those are much more time consuming, and I think have a cost associated with them. But that is another way that those things can be done.
Mm-hmm. And just to take up a little more time, if it's an emergency use and you build something, can it stay there, or does it have to disappear after the emergency is over? I mean, that's a thought. So
yeah, and I think that I have had this conversation with the Department of Transportation and Development, and I don't remember what the answer was. I think there may be a way, if it's permitted under an emergency, and there's a process that it goes through, that it can be continued. But I would defer to my colleagues at the Department of Transportation and Development. Zoning and code is not my métier.
I think you have enough on your plate. Thank you, Vahid, so much for all of your help and work and effort. Thank you.
I want to take one more question from Mark Elliott, and then we probably need to move on with our agenda. Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Valerie. I guess I wanted to make a kind of an observation about ways in which I think the public can help. And one of those is through the development of accessory dwelling units, which are a part of individual homes. And I have one myself here in the county. And I think that there are many more that are coming about, even in new homes that are being built now, are often being built that way. I think that's one way to also provide some amount of housing that is done through private ownership. One of the issues I've seen, I'm grateful to the county that they have embraced the idea of an accessory dwelling unit and have that now as a use that can be done within a single family house. What I found is that not all parts of the county are embracing that. And I think mostly that is through some very expensive system development fees that are required to have that and to be able to have an accessory dwelling unit on your property. And I guess one of the things that I hope to pursue, in the next year or two is to understand more about what can be done to make it more affordable for individuals to add accessory dwelling units to their homes in order to provide as another means of some sense of affordable housing. But a question I had for you, Vahid, was if you have an understanding of how many people or percentage of those who do get permanent housing through your programs become homeless again.
Yes, we do track returns to homelessness from our programs. This is a national measure that HUD tracks in all homeless services programs, and we have among the best performance in our systems in the country. Our continuum of care consistently is ranked among the best in the United States. We have great partners in the programs that are delivered through the funding in the county, Clackamas Women's Services, Northwest Housing Alternatives. Many community partners do excellent work. So that is a low rate. I don't have it off the top of my head, Mark, but it is something that is tracked, and that data is accessible. I could get that. I just don't have it. Don't have that data memorized, unfortunately.
So I guess what I'm thinking is that by perhaps solving that for a certain group does not solve the issue, because there is always those who are becoming homeless, who may have homes now but are losing it for a variety of reasons that you mentioned, right?
Yes, it's a dynamic issue.
Thank you, Vahid. Thank you for being with us. I'm sure that there will be other conversations in the future as we continue to look at our community and think about the issues of housing. So I just want to say thank you. That was excellent. And just a reminder to everyone that our meetings are recorded. And so if there are people in the community who have questions about this, you'll be able to refer them to the Oak Grove Community Council website, where they can watch this meeting and hear that excellent presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, everybody.
We'd like to move on now. Commissioner Paul Savas has asked for time on our agenda this evening to talk about a collaborative safety project for 99E, and I'm anxious to hear about this. And Commissioner, please go ahead and take the time you need to do that. So.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Valerie. In the last couple Oak Grove Community Council meetings, we've talked about, it's been raised about some sidewalk issues and some projects we've been doing. And I thought I would give a little bit of background on sidewalks and some of these projects, bike ped, and then how we can maybe advance and work together more collaboratively in the future to advance some of these things and some learned lessons. So back about 20 years ago, the first sidewalk project that really came before us as a community effort, a lift, if you will, was the Concord project. And we put sidewalks, we being the county and the community, worked together to put sidewalks from McLaughlin Boulevard to the west along most of Concord. And we went around, for example, we went around a tree as opposed to cutting a tree down. We went around the tree. We did some creative things, and so it was kind of exciting because a couple of years prior to that, a number of us in the community were part of the McLaughlin 99E corridor study that was put on by ODOT, and the three major requests that came out of that effort was. The community wanted more sidewalks, we wanted street lighting, and we wanted safe crossings across McLaughlin Boulevard. And lo and behold, took a long time, but ODOT came through and they put in substantial amount of sidewalks on 99E. Again, community support, county support. We had a lot of collaboration for that, and it took time, and we have some gaps today, and we have some good news on those gaps as well. We got the crosswalks, even though they weren't exactly quite what we wanted. We got the pedestrian islands is what we wanted. There was some controversy on that, and we got a lot of work to do. So that's where I'm going to end my conversation on tonight, as far as how to get there. But I just want to call out that the effort and the lift it takes, we learned a lot. The community council worked on a number of applications for developments of communities and homes. And in that, we also did this thing called FILO, and that was called fee in lieu of. And it was a waiving, putting in sidewalks, and it saved the developer some money, but we waived putting in sidewalks. And just to the core, we're just remembering what the community said, early on. I always struggled with that. And we ought to be building sidewalks. And granted, we're not building an entire system, but they would take that fee and they would build a pool of funds. And when there was a gap somewhere or an opportunity to put in or a complete part of a sidewalk system, we would use those monies and pool them. Granted, in some areas, it didn't make any sense to put a sidewalk. So I think and that fee in lieu of is still there today, except today we receive more revenue for that. So the developer gets less of a discount, but the pot of money grows bigger with that fee in lieu of program today. The community council got involved with another project on Kellogg Avenue across Risley. We had a school crossing, and the school crossing across Risley, Concord School, behind Office Max and Ace Hardware over there is Olive Street. And from Olive Street across Risley was a crosswalk, and that crosswalk terminated right into a culvert. And I live in that area, so I would often see kids that would have to dodge a car and leap into or try to leap across the culvert. And especially in the winter, it was wet, it was dangerous, and you just don't want to see kids in harm's way. So as the years developed, a program started called SRS, Safe Routes to Schools. And so now that has been an emphasis. But we as a community council worked together, and I appreciate the support at the time from the community council to appeal the decision of the county not to build the sidewalk. But we appealed it, but to no end. We weren't successful. The developer got to do his project without the sidewalk, and that would have completed, really, frankly, some of that system. About 8 years ago, still having that on my mind, and was able to get that project completed. And now there's a safe crossing there and several hundred feet of sidewalk. A lot more to go on Kellogg, but Kellogg was part of the essential pedestrian network. And at a time in the future, we can talk about what that network is, how big it is, and how much of it is sidewalked. I think it'd be a great discussion. We've done a number of projects. The other Safe Route to School project recently was the one at Oak Grove School on Torbank. We put in sidewalks from River Road all the way to the school. I would say the largest, coolest sidewalk, probably not really a sidewalk, but a trail, was the trolley trail. That was a huge benefit. And about 2012, I was able to push for, and the staff to push for the Jenny's Lodge project for put an application together for some state funding. And we set up at the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee a panel to approve some dollars, state dollars, MTIP dollars to get that project built, flexible funds actually. And so we competed with other projects around the county, Oregon City, Happy Valley, Gladstone, and so forth. But we were able to get some funding for that project, but not enough. And so staff, DTD, tried to secure more funding to get that project complete. And it's taken some time, but now the funds are fully there, and we're acquiring the last bit of right-of-way acquisition to make that project get started. So you'll see some action on that pretty soon. So all to say, my message here today is how we can work collaboratively with the community councils, because some of these issues affect, Oatfield and River Road and McLaughlin go through two very active community councils, Oak Grove and Jenny's Lodge. So I think it's kind of, opportunistic. And I think the county commissioners years back saw that. And, as a result, I think that was part of the impetus for forming MAPIT as a forum to implement some of the plans and some of these sidewalks and some of these ideals and lighting. MAPIT was very, very instrumental in making the street lighting project happen. The businesses were very instrumental in signing on because really they paid the bill. It was their signatures that made that project happen because it was the street lights that were on the frontage of the boulevard, which of course the businesses own for the most part. The other exciting news is that Boardman Avenue and Hull Avenue are slated with ODOT because 99E is an ODOT facility, are slated to have both a flashing crosswalk system put in and a segment of sidewalk completed where there is none today on Boardman in front of Pete's Lair Tavern and the other adjacent property. So those are slated to take place here, I believe later this year. I think they break ground on that. So again, some more collaborative work, and just want to let everyone know that those are happening. And also the other big news, I think, and I'm sure the Community Council is aware of this, is that we, through another grant process, we fought for and succeeded with collaboration with others with the Courtney Avenue project. So Courtney Avenue from McLaughlin Boulevard west, I think all the way to River Road, if I'm not mistaken, will be sidewalked at some point. These are very expensive projects. They're not cheap. They take time, they take planning, they take cooperation with the water district, water services because of the drainage issues. So they're complex. And in the other small project that was completed recently was the ADA ramps and the crosswalk across the street from Fred Meyer and the storage facility. So we had that crosswalk. That project got delayed, was successful in pressuring our staff to get that underway. And working through some issues with Oak Lodge Water Services on drainage, we were able to get that project underway. So we fixed all the way to River Road to Oatfield. We fixed all the ADA ramps and made that quite a bit safer. So my message here today is, I know Fred, he's not here today. I don't see him on the list, but I've always done a shout out for Fred. He's been one of our greatest advocates for sidewalks with his work with the Community Council, but most especially with MAPIT. And I just wanted to acknowledge that by working together, I think, and seeing that we have some federal monies available, whether they're American Rescue dollars or whether they're CDBG grant monies, which stands for Community Development Block Grants, or whether they are other dollars that come to the county through the federal government with all these stimulus packages, we might be eligible for some funding to make these projects happen. One lacking thing that we lack today is getting these projects in packages, whether individually, they're spelled out in our TSP, that stands for Transportation System Plan. It's ideal if we can maybe package some of these, work with the county, work through MAPIT, work through with ODOT and all the agencies and the water services to make some of these projects happen. And by showing that level of community support and collaboration, I think we can possibly get some more safety crosswalks across McLaughlin. So I wanted to give you that update again because the last two meetings, this sidewalks have come up in a constructive fashion. And I just wanted to build on that, and knowing that these dollars were potentially going to come, and we know they are. We're waiting for federal guidance to know what we can spend the dollars on and what we cannot spend the dollars on. We're hoping that we can get some dollars spent. But we're going to have to work together to make it happen. We need that level of collaboration. So that's my message. I'm happy to take any questions. I don't think I even spent my 15 minutes, but don't need to. Thank you, Valerie, for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner, for the update. Are there any questions for Commissioner Salas tonight? I think you covered the subject. So
Great. Thank you so much.
Very much. So we're going to move on to our community updates. And the first update we have is from the Community Emergency Response Team. So who is doing that update tonight? Rich, great. Unmute yourself before you talk and so Who is doing the update for the CERT response? CERT team, is that
I
Rich?
thought it would be Rich. if
Rich,
he's here.
You're muted and we can't see you.
There you are.
Hate it when that happens.
Welcome back.
I could see me. Basically, we've just been meeting in Zooms, but we have been providing staffing for various vaccine center operations, and that's been the most of it. We've been doing some work on creating a radio network, working with Rose Villa, and possibly adding something that'll have a tall antenna and make us able to communicate better by radio in the case of an emergency. And we're all looking forward to meeting in person again. That's it.
All right, thank you. We have a report on Concord School. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Valerie. Just a brief update. The task force had their first meeting with the architects on the schematic design earlier this month in April. And we had a chance to see some of the updates to the design that was developed during the master plan phase last year. So things are moving along well. There's a lot of collaboration going on with the library staff and with library members for both the Gladstone and Concord properties. What's coming up here in the next month or so is that there is a meeting on the sustainability strategies for the Concord School property that'll happen here on the 10th of May. And then there's also our next task force meeting occurring on May 20th. And the May 20th meeting is open to the public, and all of the material that was reviewed at these task force meetings is available on the county website. So I think the good news is that the design is moving along, and the county commissioners has approved the design fees for the work to complete through construction documents into construction. So I think there's a lot of good news and good progress that's taking place. Anyone have any questions about the Concord School project? I think that's it, Valerie.
I see that Anita has a question. Go ahead.
Oh.
I haven't kept up with it, even though I think it's a marvelous new development. What company or what who's doing the landscaping? I've seen the architect names, but not the landscape firm.
Oh, you're going to ask me that question. I do not remember their name. They are a local firm here that does have experience in doing parks. I think they've done some work for the NCPRD in the past. I apologize, I don't know their name. I believe their name is available. If you look on the website, you can see the design team listed there.
Okay.
But Anita, if you'd like, I'd be happy to look into that and get back to you.
No, that's fine. I will track it down. Thanks, though.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for the update, Mark. So I'm going to give a quick, as the chair of the Park Avenue Community Advisory Committee, I'm going to do a quick update on the Park Avenue meetings. On Wednesday, April 21st, the Park Avenue Community Business Forum was convened. It was attended by 64 people, and all of the Clackamas County commissioners were present, with the exception of Commissioner Schrader, who had a previous obligation that she needed to take care of. There were 3 business people currently in the study area who spoke against restricting new car-related businesses and storage units within the study area. 1 business person in the study area spoke in favor of the restriction, and several people from outside the study area were also given time to speak. Members of the Park Avenue community were discouraged with the meeting's format as they were only given 90 seconds to speak, while some people from outside the study area were given a full 5 minutes. There were no conclusions at the end of the meeting. The work of the Park Avenue Community Advisory Committee was unanimously approved by the Board of County Commissioners to be sent to the Planning Commission back in December. Wednesday's meeting was one of several meetings that will be ongoing with the Planning Commission. Once it has the projects in its hands, then it continues to have meetings with the community. We'll continue to have those before any kind of recommendations or on the new standards are made back to the commissioners. The full meeting, all of it, is available on the county website. It's listed as the Park Avenue Community Business Forum. And if you are interested, I would encourage you to listen to it. Or they also have a good list of breakdown of reading of notes that were done from that meeting. So are there any questions such from the group around that meeting? Okay, thank you. Then moving along, I'm going to ask Anita has an announcement that she make.
Hi, I'm just going to read this to make it go fast. My announcement's about North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District and a rollout of a new system for more representation for the historically underserved unincorporated areas. And tonight I'm asking you to do two things. One is to come to a Zoom meeting tomorrow night and choose 2 members for the District Advisory Committee to represent you. The Parks District relies on this committee for the community input about locations and kinds of parks and input about recreation programs and events. And these are the logistics. The meeting is tomorrow, Thursday, April 29th at 7 p.m. by Zoom. And you pre-register at, and I'll put this in the chat, ncprd.com/district-advisory-committee. And to vote, each voter in your household needs to pre-register, not just one of you. You must be at the meeting Thursday night to vote. And if there are 2 or more voters in your household, voting will work for everyone, whether you're sharing a computer or at separate computers, or even calling in on a phone, as long as each voter has registered for the meeting. Registering before the meeting gives you time to read the candidates' applications ahead of the election. So that's the first thing I'm asking. And the second thing I'm asking is for you to vote for me to be one of your representatives if you live in sub-area 2. What I want to do on the DAC is work on getting parks for unincorporated areas that lack them. And I want to work to keep our district from losing more potential parkland. We need to set aside adequate land for parks for our growing population. At the same time, we add housing or businesses or infrastructure. So thank you, and I hope to see you tomorrow night on Zoom, and I'll put the link that you need for registering in the chat.
Okay. Do we have other announcements tonight? All right, I'm going to see if I can put up the agenda here just momentarily. Yay, that worked. That's always a good sign. Just so I can let you know about future Oak Grove Community Council meetings. They will continue to be on Zoom until further notice. I want to make the note that our next meeting on May 26th, we will have Captain Carrie Shanklin, who is coming from Fire District 1, and she is coming to talk to us about what we can do as property owners to be prepared for the coming fire season. And they have the Ready, Set, Go program that they are unveiling. And so she will be here at our meeting on May 26th. So you might tell neighbors or friends if they're interested in what we can do as homeowners with a fire season that is already shaping up to not be very, very good for us. After last year, we all know that we need to be proactive. So she will be here on the 26th. And then our next general meetings will be on June 23rd and on July 28th. Our Oak Grove board meetings are normally on the first Monday of the month. This is a notice that our meeting has been postponed this Monday. This is in deference to our chair, Joseph Edge, that we would like to have present. And so our next board meeting will be on May the 17th, rather than on this coming Monday as it normally would have been scheduled. And then following that, we hope to maintain that first Monday time. With that, unless there are other announcements or items or something that I've forgotten, which would not be a surprise tonight, let me know. We are ready to adjourn, and we will, as we have been doing, stay online for people that might want to just gather and chat with other people for a little while, so the community will be open. But I'm going to close the meeting and say that the recording is now stopping, and we're closed.